So, welcome back to another episode. To those of you who haven't seen the first one, I'd recommend maybe going and checking it out. It's on my channel. But essentially, this is going to be a series that I'm starting where I'm building out a startup in public and trying to create a successful software as a service business. Just briefly, the problem, in case you didn't see the last one and aren't bothered to watch it, that's fair enough. Essentially, we're going to try to be creating an application that lets people see dog waste disposal bins near them. So that's pretty much a rough version of the idea. I've boiled it down to an MVP. What's the least amount of functionality I need to have in order to create an MVP and get it into the hands of users. I have an idea of what that is in my head. I've written down a lot of requirements, and in this video we'll hop into Figma. We'll spend some time in Figma doing some basic UI designs, and then we'll talk a bit about the tech stack, like what do I actually want to use to build this. Do I want to make a native application? Do I want to make a web application? What we use for databases, what are some extra features in the futures, and a bunch of good stuff like that. So if this series is something that maybe interests you, if you want to watch the process of me taking an idea that I have of a problem that I have and creating a business or a software as a service product potentially, if that's something that interests you, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any more videos. And yeah, let's get into it. So I'll quickly let this recording play by. I won't bore you with any of my shitty Figma skills, but essentially I spent an hour just in Figma plotting out what I wanted the basic MVP to look like. I started initially with some UI components that I was going to need, and then it was time to map out the different layouts that we'd have. So on mobile, I just kept things simple, and we had a bottom navigation bar down the bottom, and then there was going to be 3 different pages: the home page, the find page, and then the add bin page. Once I had the mobile navigation page plotted out and the basic elements and the basic functionality, it was time to look at the desktop layout, which was going to be a bit different than the mobile. The desktop, I wanted a nav bar on the left, so I basically just plotted out what I wanted that to look like. And then once I was done these designs, I had a bit of a better understanding of what the application's MVP would look like with the most basic functionality. I've just got done doing the initial UI designs for the MVP, and I thought I'd just briefly go through it and give an explanation of some stuff. I think a lot of it is self-explanatory and probably doesn't need a lot of explanation, but I'll still go through it and just give some thought. So for the UI design on mobile, again, we don't really need to care about this at the moment. It's just going to be a basic welcome message or a home page or something similar like that. There's a bottom navigation down here at the bottom. When the user navigates to the find one, so the middle icon, they'll be presented with a map with different icons. They'll have a find bin button, which will have some functionality behind it to determine the closest bin near them, and will show them a path available to the bin. And then as they progress their walk towards the bin, we'll maybe look at doing stuff like directions and basically just your average Google Map things. I think a lot of that should be provided through the API, but of course as the user moves, they get closer and closer to the bin, the path reduces and so on. And once the user then successfully bins their waste, they can hit waste bin, which will then display a modal. The map will be grayed out behind them, and then once they close this, they'll be presented back to this screen. We also obviously need a way to add bins, so there's going to be a button, which is just going to be a basic button that's going to allow you to click it to add a bin, and then it'll just add a bin at the current location. As the app grows and as we get out of the MVP designs, there might need to be a form that pops up here. There might need to be some validation in order to check that a user is actually adding a bin. Do we even want users to add bins? I'm not sure the best way to get bins into the application. But again, this is something we can explore as we dive into the functionality of the app. Then on desktop, the navigation is going to change, so we'll no longer have the bottom navigation. And we'll have a side menu that'll pop up to the left, and the functionality will remain the same. You'll have your bins that are available, you have your current user icon, and a lot of stuff will remain the same. I just realized I forgot a bin button to add a bin, so we can add that somewhere on the map as well, maybe up here. This can all likely change, but it's just to kind of give a rough idea of what we want. So when it comes time to development, we can just look over and glance and know what it's going to look like. On the left here, there's just some basic UI elements. Again, this is very rough and ready. I'm not a UI designer. But again, I do enjoy this process, and I think it's good to map it out before you jump into development. So now that we've the basic designs out of the way and we know what the MVP is going to look like, I want to briefly just talk about some of the technologies we're going to be using to build this. So now that we've went over the initial designs of the MVP, I want to quickly just talk about some of the technologies that I plan to use. and the tech stack that's going to be involved. I'm going to quickly try and go through this. I don't really want to bore people with this information. I understand it might not be that exciting to hear me talk about it, but it's a kind of essential part of the series. So I'll quickly brush over this. The next few videos might be a bit more interesting because we'll look into actually getting into some development. But yeah, let's get stuck into this. So first of all, I had the question, do I want to make this a native mobile application or a web application? Do I want people to be able to install it via the App Store or the Google Play Store, or do I want people to be able to access it via the web, whether it be Google Chrome or Firefox, or Safari, or whichever your web browser of choice is? Initially, or what I've gone for now, is I'm going to be building out a web application. The main reason of that being, and it might be a bit of a naive reason, I might come back to regret it, I don't think so, but it's always a possibility, is because I'm enjoying learning about Next.js. I'm enjoying learning about web development. All my skill sets are currently there. While I could look at React Native, I have React skills. I could probably look at React Native and build out a native application if need be. But again, I'm not really excited about building a mobile native application. I want to look at Next.js. I want to build a website that people can access anywhere. So for now, I'm going to be going with a web application, but if we decide down the line that maybe a native mobile application would be better suited, we can always look into that option. I don't think we'll come to that conclusion. I think everything that we can do should be perfectly fine in the web, but again, if things change or if it's better suited as an application, if users want it as a mobile native application that you download via the App Store, we can always look at that. I do think it'll be harder to get people to download an app. It's hard enough to get people to use them. I think if you're getting people to download an app, the barrier to entry might be a bit higher. But again, if things change, we can always come back and look at this. In terms of a framework, I've recently said back here that I'm enjoying a bit Next.js. So yeah, we're going to be looking at Next.js, a framework for React. I'm a React developer at my day job. I spend lots of time in React. And inside projects, I like looking at Next.js. I'm really enjoying the app router and React server components. I think it has a great, Next.js has a great ecosystem of tools that are available to help you build. So we're going to continue on with this, and I'm going to continue building my skills in that direction. In terms of database, the one I'm going to be going with is PlanetScale. It's a MySQL database, and it has a great free tier. I would have liked to go on with Supabase, but I currently have a project already. I don't even know my own project URL. I currently have a project up and running on my Supabase free tier, so that's currently used. If I wanted to use up another Supabase project, I think I'd have to pay 20 euros, so I'm not going to go with that. PlanetScale should be fine. They have a great free tier, like I said. You can pay as you scale. It's going to be pretty much free for the start, and then as you get users and users have queries, you can pay as you use. So it's really convenient. I would like to use Supabase because it has a Postgres database, but it should be more than enough. In terms of styles, we're going to be using Tailwind CSS, utility-based class framework for React, or whatever you want to use it for. A utility for CSS framework, sorry. So I've used this in the past on previous projects. A lot of people have the argument, well, not a lot, some people, that they find this quite messy, but I never really had that as an issue. I always like having it in the one file and being able to quickly glance at your components and see how they're styled. So I'm going to continue on using Tailwind CSS, and we're going to be pairing it with ShedCN UI. I haven't really used this. It's a component library that has a bunch of components. So I'm going to try learn a bit about this. In the past, I've used Preline UI, which is another component library for Tailwind CSS, but I feel like these are harder to change to get them to suit your needs. It can be done and you can change them, but there's a bit less wiggle room. I feel like with ShedCN UI, I might have a bit more wiggle room to make it look like how I want it to. So we're going to dive into that and try learn a bit about that. Then in terms of extras, we'll be looking at Prisma as an ORM. It's great for modeling your database, for handling migrations, and I think it all around just makes the experience of setting up your database and working with your database a lot better. So we're going to continue using that. I've used it in the past. I think it's great. And we're going to look at using the Google Maps API. Obviously, there's a huge piece of functionality that is revolved around a map. So we're going to look at the Google Map API for that. We're going to be looking at TypeScript as well. I won't be using JavaScript. I'll be taking advantage of types. So yeah, and then in the future, as we get out of the MVP stages and we get a bit more functionality into the application, we'll look at things like next auth. So we want our users to be able to sign up, to be able to register. So we'll need some authentication there. We'll also need payments. If we're going to build out a SaaS, we'll need a way to make money, take payments. We'll look at Stripe for that. And then we'll also need a way for users to be able to send emails. And we'll look at React email for that. I think we'll also look at Resend to be able to actually send them emails for free. They have a good API to do that. Oh, I already have that there. I don't know why I didn't see that. Maybe I need to get glasses, but yeah, that's that. And then login services. So when we deploy our application, probably to Vercel, and we'll need a way to output any logs, so any errors that happen, because it's not going to be running locally. We won't see them in the console, so we'll look at something like maybe Datadog or some other services. I've never really looked into login services or I've never set any up. I've always just had console.logs and have them running locally. But yeah, that's going to be something fun to learn. So yeah, I feel like I've just powered through that. Hopefully that all made sense. I feel like I just absolutely rambled on there. But essentially that's the stack that we're going to be using, and we'll see how it goes. In the next episode we'll look at maybe building out the MVP. We'll do some prototyping and we'll dive into some development. So hopefully that'll be a bit more exciting. So thanks again for watching. If this is something that interests you, if you want to see this and follow along with this series and see me build out this project and product, and hopefully build it into a successful product, then do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss another video. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.